Welcome to Workplace Psychology with Dr. Martha Greidick. I'm Dr. Martha Greidick. This podcast examines a wide variety of work-related issues through the lens of industrial and organizational psychology. And while many of the topics discussed here may be seen as intended for white-collar employees and their employers, in reality, the ideas presented here are applicable across organizations and industries. Additionally, many of the topics discussed here may be applicable outside of the workplace. I encourage you to examine what's presented here, apply what makes sense to you, and simply discard the rest. Burnout is an important topic of conversation. It's something that I've discussed on this podcast more than once. But burnout recovery is something else that deserves a lot of our attention. It is often misunderstood. Burnout, recovering from burnout, takes a long time. It's not going to be something that is resolved in a long weekend or by taking a week or two off from work. It may take as long to recover from burnout as it took to get into that burnout state, maybe even longer. This is critical for both employees and employers to understand, because in order for effective recovery from burnout to be a possibility, to be a reality, everybody has to be realistic about what that will take and how long it may take. While there are many contributing factors when it comes to burnout, when it comes to the workplace, that may be one of the biggest contributors to a person's burnout. But having said that, it's important to remember that the most effective approach to recovering from burnout should be a holistic one. So because this podcast is focused on the workplace, we'll look at burnout contributing factors that are related to work. But again, it's important to remember that a holistic approach is the most valuable approach when it comes to effective recovery from burnout. As an individual begins their journey to burnout recovery, it's important to understand, to identify what kinds of factors, what kinds of variables, what kinds of things at work may have contributed to that burnout. Some of those things may include things such as workload, compensation, or maybe lack of compensation, feeling of not being valued, the relationships that one has within that work environment, within the workplace, organizational values, and the alignment or lack of alignment between the values of the employee and the organization, and things such as fairness. Now that's just a short list of examples. There could be many other contributing factors, many other areas which will have contributed to a person's feeling of burnout. The idea is to identify what is it about work, what areas of one's job, of one's work environment have contributed or are contributing or could contribute to a burnout state or a future burnout state, a burnout that's just around the corner for some. Because once we're able to identify the offenders, then we can work on alleviating their effects, on making changes that will make these variables less significant, less detrimental, less dangerous, if you will. This is where the idea of job crafting can come in as a wonderful partner for healing from burnout and for preventing burnout. Specifically, job crafting can be used as a tool to help you deal with whatever factors you may have identified as contributing factors to your burnout. Many of you will recall from the last episode that when it comes to job crafting, it's kind of all about the employee. The overall goal of job crafting is employee wellness, employee well-being. Through job crafting, an employee has the opportunity to make proactive and purposeful changes to their job and potentially to shape their own job environment in a way that fits their needs. While the intention of job crafting is to empower the employee, it comes with a certain level of responsibility because at the end of the day, this is a collaboration, a cooperation between employee and employer. Yes, employee wellness is our goal, but there has to be an agreement between organizations and their employees in terms of what will work for both. So while we advocate and focus on the well-being of the employee through things such as job crafting, it's not something where it's a free-for-all and everybody runs amok. So it provides certain level of responsibility to the employee as well. As we look at burnout and as we look at burnout recovery, this is a call to action for both employees and employers. Job crafting can be incredibly valuable. It can be an amazing tool to help with the recovery process and in many ways to help prevent burnout altogether. So, to the employees, regardless of whether you are already in a state of burnout or you're on the verge or you're heading in that direction, you absolutely must take on that responsibility to reach out to your employer and start that conversation so that you can explore job crafting as a way to help either prevent, alleviate, or recover from burnout. And employers have an equally important responsibility. Employers cannot simply hope that employees get better. Employers cannot simply hope that burnout won't happen. Employers have to be proactive and engaged. So as an employer, as a manager, as a leader within an organization, you have to know what's going on with your employees and get the same conversation started and use something like job crafting as one of the opportunities, one of the tools that is available for both sides to prevent burnout and to help to heal burnout. As this episode comes to an end, let's review what was discussed. Burnout is a serious topic of conversation, and I've talked about burnout in multiple episodes. The other thing that is also important in terms of burnout conversations is burnout recovery. It's important to remember that recovering from burnout will take a long time. It will take at least as long as it took the individual to get into that state of burnout. It's not a matter of a long weekend or taking a week or two off. That simply will not help someone to completely heal or to resolve burnout. This is where job crafting comes in as a potential tool to help individuals recover from burnout. And it can also be a tool to help prevent burnout. After all, job crafting is focused on employee wellness, and it is intended to empower employees, but also to give a certain level of responsibility to the employees. Now, this is a collaboration between employee and employer. Job crafting is a wonderful thing when implemented correctly, but it has to be a collaboration and a cooperation between both employee and employer. And when we combine the idea of job crafting with burnout prevention or healing from burnout, we can get tremendous results if done correctly. As the week unfolds, I encourage you to think about burnout for yourself and for your organization, for those around you, whether you're in management or not. Maybe burnout is affecting you personally, maybe it's affecting someone on your team, or maybe a colleague. The important thing is to realize what's going on and to start working towards healing, start working towards a resolution. Job crafting is one of those wonderful tools that can help to prevent burnout or help people to heal from burnout. Take some time this week to think about whether burnout is part of your life or your workplace experience, and consider how job crafting can either prevent burnout or help the journey to recovery from burnout. For those of you who experience this podcast in an audio-only version, I encourage you to check out my YouTube channel where you can find the video version of the podcast. My YouTube channel is Stress Free with Dr. G, and the link for that is in the description below. In addition to the video version of the podcast, my YouTube channel also contains videos that focus on stress management, so I encourage you to check that out. Thank you for joining me today. Please subscribe to this podcast. I look forward to seeing you here again next time. Until then, I wish you joy and well-being.